Hello, my name is Pam Atwood. On behalf of the West Newbury PTO, thank you everyone, candidates, guests, for coming to Candidates Night. We're going to move along pretty quickly this evening because there's a selectmen's meeting at 7 p.m. in this room. So I quickly want to just read down the list of candidates that are up for election this year. We have Glenn Kemper running for Board of Selectmen, Robert Janes for Board of Health, Lawrence Corcoran for Water Commissioner, Virginia Selman, Holly Cole, Amy Custance, Library Trustees, John Sarkis for the Planning Board, Thomas Flaherty, Parks and Recreation, Lawrence Corcoran, Housing Authority, Richard Davies, Constable, and Kathleen Swallow, Town Moderator. We do have a couple of the candidates in the audience. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to approach them offline. I know Amy Custance, just raise your hand. Amy's here. If you have any questions for her. There's also a position, Board of Assessors, and there's no one running. So if anyone is interested, it'd be great. We need someone for Board of Assessors. We have one contested race, which is for School Committee. And this evening we have here Jill Albert running for School Committee and Andrew Murphy. So I'm going to ask each of them to give a brief statement, and then we're going to open up to questions from the audience. And we've agreed the candidates will try to keep their answers to about 2 minutes so we can move things along, get all the questions answered, hopefully this evening. So I think without further ado, Jill, would you like to
Sure, I'll go first.
Your statement?
I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank the West Newbury PTO for hosting us, especially Pam. She's really worked behind the scenes getting this all together for us, so she really deserves a lot of appreciation from both of us because it was phenomenal. The one thing is, my name is Eichhorst, but that's okay.
I'm sorry. Eichhorst.
If somebody would like to know what I've been on the West Newbury School Committee now, this would be going into my 4th term if I'm elected. We came from a place where, when I first ran for office, we were a $1.5 million deficit. There was a lot of turnover in our business office. I think one of the things that I helped bring Pentucket to where we are today is I helped to stabilize that business office. I have a business background. We're in a good place now. We're moving forward. We have some innovation schools, and I'm so glad that I've been part of this, and I hope to continue. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy?
Hi, I'm Andy Murphy, and I too would like to thank the PTO for hosting Candidates Night, because this is the first time I've run for anything in West Newbury, and I appreciate having this opportunity to tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here. First of all, who I am. I moved to West Newbury 15 years ago with my wife Geraldine, who's back there in the crowd, and our newborn baby Nick. And I also had a newborn company at the time. It's a public relations and marketing agency, and I was growing it out of my kitchen. And if you fast forward 15 years, there's been a lot of growing up going on, and Nick is now a 9th grader at the high school. Our second son, Zach, is a 6th grader in the Page School. And my company has grown to 70 people. We got 3 offices around the world, and we were lucky enough to be acquired by a British company a couple of years ago. And when you add all that up, there are actually fewer time requirements that there once were, which gives me the flexibility to focus on some new things. And what I'd really like to do is to take the experience I've gained over the years and focus on something I really care about. And I really care about our public school system. It is so central to me, to our health as a community. And I'm really dismayed as to what has happened to the reputation of the Pentucket Regional School District in recent years. Parents are pulling their kids out of the system at a really distressing rate. Nick's 9th grade class has 27% fewer students in it than it had in the 8th grade. And we got to address this problem. And I think the school committee's job is to take a leadership role in addressing this problem. So if you remember nothing else about why I'm running for school committee, it's that I want to get this community believing in the district again. Because if we do this, we will solve any number of problems. Reducing the attrition rate, We'll up our standardized testing scores. We'll get the real estate market going again, and the list goes on and on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, both candidates. Do we have any questions from the audience? Mr. Anderson, please use the microphone. Oh, I'm sorry. Before you start, one thing I forgot to say, we will give the opportunity for both candidates to answer the question.
Okay. Actually, I have two questions that I'd like to direct to each of the candidates to answer first, and then the other one can answer if that's okay with you. Okay, Andy, for you first. And
Yep.
then, do you agree or disagree with the current Whittier admission policy? And if there are any aspects that you disagree with, please be specific about what they are and what you would do to remedy it.
Well, I think the big question is the established policy being followed? And that's being looked at right now by the superintendent, by the Board of Selectmen. I think it's very good that they're doing so because there appears to be perhaps some straying from what's supposed to be the policy. And what we don't want to have happen is to have any of the kids in any, not just West Newbury, but any of the supporting towns to be left behind here. So I am wholeheartedly in favor of what the superintendent and the Board of Selectmen are doing right now in trying to get to the bottom of what's going on.
Any particular aspects?
Well, I think if you're not adhering to the policy and you're letting kids choice in from outside of the district and you are not accepting students from within the district, I think that's egregious and I think it has to stop. So I can't imagine anything else about the policy being bigger than that.
Can I follow up with that? I'm glad that Andy agrees that this is a problem. Myself and Chris Weil has been bringing this forward at a number of school committee meetings. We have brought it to the regional finance district meetings. Joe, you were there at the time when we were starting to speak about these kind of things. You know, it's not just 30% of the students from West Newbury who applied last year didn't get in. That just put up a red flag to me. 30%, and we weren't doing anything about it. The other thing is, I asked the question of the demographics of Haverhill. Haverhill's demographics is about 28% Hispanic students. When you look at the students that go to Whittier, it should correlate to that number. There's about 68% of the students are from Haverhill. You should have the corresponding relationship of students who are Hispanic. It is half the number. The white population at Whittier is far, by 500, over exceeding what you would get from the sending towns. There are some red flags in the demographics of the makeup of the students that go there. And I think that we need to find the answers to this. Myself and Joanna from the school committee asked these questions a year ago to Whittier representatives. We still do not have an answer. It's been a year. We need an answer.
Thank you. And you had another question?
This one was for Jill first. Dr. Mulqueen has taken the approach to the budget that the towns can afford a 2.5% increase plus new growth in their budgets. Do you agree or disagree with this, and how would you balance this with the educational needs of the district, which I'm presuming would be more than what he's asking for?
Well, we can always ask for more. I mean, you could ask for the sky. The approach that we've taken in the last 3 years is a zero-based budget. So what that means is every single line, we have to make a decision on, is this an inflated line item? Do you really need it? You have to justify it. So instead of going from a level service fund, so that whatever we had last year, we're just going to do it again with a small increase, we do it line by line. So we build it from the bottom up. That's why we've been able to give you budgets in the last 3 years that have been below the 2.5%. We are living within the means of our towns. We need other services in our towns. So it's not just the schools. We understand that there are other groups here that we have to address. We also have a good working relationship with our teachers union, and this past year, if you had noticed, 4 union contracts were settled within a year. Our teachers now do not get both a column and a step change. They get one or the other. That helps you to budget better.
You wanted me to address it as well, is that correct? Okay. So I think, look, the budget used to be rife with drama and voting for overrides and all sorts of discord, and I think the fact that that has been calmed down is a good thing. However, I think the public's input into the budget has been largely limited due to the way it's been presented to the town. The thing to remember here is the school committee on its own site lists its roles and responsibilities as articulated by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. 2 of those 11 items are communications and advocacy. The budget meeting was so poorly advertised because it had to be delayed due to a delay in the state announcing their funding, that there literally wasn't even a quorum in the school committee for the budget meeting because not all the school committee members knew what time it was. I was the only member of the community there outside of a reporter and but the reality is, when you think a few years back, it used to be that there were articles in the paper encouraging citizens to come to the budget meeting. The budget would be projected and discussed in an open forum. And for whatever reason, the school committee, I think, has pared back on its communications role, so people just don't even know when these meetings are. And I think if we want to get the community engaged again in the school system and supporting the school system and getting excited about the school system, we need to be open about these things, invite people in, and have an honest discussion about the budget.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Mr. McGrath, yep.
I agree with both of you that the Whittier issue is dire, because I believe in a vertical opportunity for every student, for whatever capacity throughout the towns, so that they have the Whittier outlet, and even I think Essex Agricultural, I'm not sure about that. But you mentioned that you're not getting answers. How long has this been going on, and this is to Jill, how long has this been going on, and how did it get so deeply off-center for apparently a period of time? Could we hear about that?
Sure. You know, when I first came to the district as your representative, my goal was to get the house in order, the financial house in order. And I think that, you know, we've done that. We've had good financial reporting in there. I started delving into some other areas the last couple of years on the innovation schools, getting some information out there, kind of get grassroots, how are people feeling. And some people came to me about Whittier, and they said, you know, my kid didn't get in. They're from another town. And I said, geez, you know, I don't understand why. I know your kid. Your kid's a good kid, average, you know, in school. And I started looking at it, and I'm going, you have to pass this 5-tier admissions policy to get into Whittier. And I looked at this and I said to myself, geez, if you're a C average student and you have maybe 10 or 12 days absent out of school in a year and a half, that's not unreasonable. You have to have an interview. You have to have a guidance counselor give you a recommendation, and your grades. So, attendance, your conduct, I'm sorry, that was the 5th one, your conduct and effort. So if you're an average kid, you just might not get in. If you're a C average student, have more than 10 days absent, do an average interview, get a fair recommendation, and your conduct is good. You have to get so many points. So I started looking at this and I'm going, this isn't what Whittier was like 15 years ago. If you lived in the town, you could go there if you chose to go there. It has changed. It has been, in my opinion, I'm not going to speak for the school committee, I'm speaking for myself. It has become as hard to get into Whittier as it is to the local private schools in this area. And that is not right. Whittier was set up so kids who wanted to learn a trade to start work when they finished high school could. We can't teach those kind of courses at Pentucket. We're not allowed to teach vocational courses. These kids who don't get in are lost in the system.
Okay,
They
so
have
first-
to. I'm sorry.
No. Wrap it up.
With all due respect, you didn't answer my question.
I'm sorry.
The question was, how long has this been going on?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very passionate about this. So, I was made aware of this about a year and a half ago. Chris Weil and I started digging into the numbers. And we started thinking about this when they brought the budget forward to us every year. We just passed it. It wasn't a lot of money to our town. I've sat in the audience. You know, it's 100,000. Everybody raises their hand, it passes. I think we really have to start asking, why are we paying for students who are not part of our district? So I was made aware of this about a year and a half ago. How long it's been going on, I cannot find any place in their handbook of when they changed this policy. So I apologize, John. I wish I could give you an answer to the definite. I was made aware of it a year and a half ago.
All right, Mr. Murphy, anything you'd like to?
Well, this would qualify as one of those questions where I wasn't there, so
Right.
I don't know how much color I can give to it. I can say, though, what I do for a living, I sort of solve tons of problems every day because it's a company with 70 people in it. And if I sniffed something wrong, I think my first natural reaction would be to call all the other towns and see if they're seeing something similar. And I think you can start to get things moving a little more quickly that way.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Solis?
Could you please talk about the snow emergency at Pentucket and how it was handled and whether you feel it was in the best interest of the students, staff, and the taxpayer in West Newbury? Thank you.
Okay, who goes first? I don't
I
remember.
did last time,
Okay,
so I think
okay.
it's Andy.
I did- yeah.
So I guess there were multiple phases to the snow emergency. I think the one that perhaps was most profound was the closing of the schools due to needing to remove the snow off the roofs. And honestly, I think in that situation, you have to make the student safety the primary consideration. So I do think the superintendent made the right decision. He made the right call in that situation. I did feel a little bad for the guy, though, because he took a lot of slings and arrows when the newspaper reported the closing of the schools before the community was notified. And, you know, again, because one of the primary responsibilities of the school committee is communication, I think they really should have been on top of that and made sure that they were notifying their constituents about what was going on rather than having them find it out in the paper.
Okay.
Can I just follow up, and what about the taxpayer? Do you have a feeling about how that was handled? It was the staff, the students, and the taxpayer. Thank you.
Well, there's a different taxpayer story in each town. I think the fact that we were able to use our volunteer fire department turned out to be a pretty efficient solution. I would defer to the selectmen in the room, though, to go into further detail on that, because that was not, I was not part of that decision-making process.
All right, thank you.
Didn't use to, I don't want to go back and forth, but we didn't use our local people for the regional district work, though.
Well, I mean, the local schools where we could use them, right. I mean, we can get into discussions about having to pay the prevailing rate, and, you know, I think my understanding is our hands are sort of tied in terms of what you have to pay in that situation. But, you know, to me, we saw in the news stories about roofs collapsing in other areas. I think at that point, the discussion around how much money it costs becomes moot compared to what could have happened if one of those roofs gave out.
Yeah, Andy's right. The superintendent made the right call. He convened the different officials in the 3 towns to let them know what was going on. It was unfortunate that it made it to the paper before the superintendent had an opportunity to contact the parents and the families in the community. That was what he planned to do. Things happen. Things don't always go the way you think they're going to go. So you move forward. So pointing fingers is not going to, like you said, pointing arrows at different people, it's not going to get us anyplace. It was unfortunate, let's move forward. It wasn't a communications thing that an individual could solve. It was a protocol issue that wasn't followed. So I'm not so sure about, Andy, what you mean by that. You know, that your expertise and your communications background would have solved that. It was a mistake. Now, as for,
What was the mistake?
it was a protocol issue. If people were drawn together to discuss what was happening, giving them the heads up first, and then from that, we would have contacted the parents, and everybody would have found out, and then it could go in the paper. So I think one thing happened before the parents were notified. So, as for using outside sources, this was a snowstorm this past winter like we've never seen before. All of our resources in our towns were being utilized in different areas, be it taking snow off their own buildings, the elementary schools. There were only so many people to go around. So using outside sources to remove the snow as quick as possible, as safely as possible, was the right call to do. So, you know, it's going to be, I think, in around $90,000 of snow removal for the Pentucket campus, the middle school and high school. I could be wrong, but that's the number I remember. So don't quote me on that, Jen, until I can look at my notes. So we all faced the snow this winter. It was horrible. I've been raking snow off my roof, and I think this is the last 2 weeks I haven't had to clean an ice dam or something. So I'm glad that the winter's over and we can move forward. So I've answered you about the taxpayer. I answered about the superintendent. Was there a third one that I missed for you, Jen? Okay.
I'm just not sure how you move forward if you don't, you know, look at what you do differently, but I'm not going to be there.
Okay.
All right, other questions in the audience?
This goes back just maybe, because there's no other questions, this might bring up some more questions, but this goes back to something that was already said in a question, actually. I had a couple of questions, but Joe stole one of them with the Whittier thing. I think he asked it a lot better than I would have, so I'm glad that came up. But, and I don't mean to seem communication, and I'm not taking sides here because Andy is saying that he's a communicator, but it seems to be different. And you know how, I don't know what it should be, but it just seems to be different with the school committee now, with their meetings. They used to be out in the cafeteria, and I don't care if only one person shows up. They should set it up in a way that it invites people to a meeting so they would come and feel comfortable and to be able to participate. It just seems the public, because the school committee runs the meetings, and it just doesn't seem like they want people to come any longer. It really, as an elected official, it bothered me how non-open that budget process is now. We used to have it a lot open, and they used to have forums you should go to, and the citizens could get better educated about it. And I'd like to go back on that, that how we're going to change that, because I think the more you get people involved, the better, the whole end process is.
So I go first?
Yeah.
Yes.
I wish more people.
I think that was more of a statement by me than
Because
I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that it just doesn't seem like it used to be. That this school committee is now. It just doesn't seem. You know what I mean? That it doesn't seem like the school committee is running the meetings anymore. It just, you can't ask questions during it. You only can ask questions to the superintendent after the meeting. It just seems like.
I'd like to address that because I don't agree with you on that at all. So Glenn, and the reason why I don't agree with you is it is posted on the Selectmen's page here, the town web page. It is on the Pentucket District page. It is in the newspaper, the meetings. We have set the tables up now so they're no longer at a great distance from people. Before, you were across the cafeteria. I couldn't even see who was asking a question. Now it is much closer to us. You can stop and ask a question at any point during our meetings. Just raise your hand and say, I have a question. Unfortunately, you can't ask the question if you don't attend. Now, Jen is usually there. She's usually the only person at the meetings. We did have a little bit of a problem for a while when the high school was flooded. We had to relocate where we were going to meet. We had to meet in the library. It was not a friendly place. You were there, Andy. It is dark. It is claustrophobic feeling. It was unfortunate we had to meet there. We do have subcommittee meetings that are open to people. They can come. Those are advertised. So when you say we're not inviting people, I'm not so sure I can agree with you on that. I do think we can do more to have people feel more welcome, but we do advertise the meetings. We do advertise the subcommittee meetings. We've had just recently the Leveraging Educational Assets in Pentucket, the LEAP program. That's for the high school complex. And that was community-wide. I went to meetings, and there were people there, and they were asking questions. And they're the people who are shaping what they'd like to see for that complex. You know, what are the problems? How are we going to address them? So I don't know. I can't agree with you on that. I wish more people would participate. I am glad Andy is running because this is an important, very important seat.
Madam Moderator, can I have a follow-up question on that?
Sure.
I mean, I understand that they're all posted because you have open meeting law requirements, and you have to post all the meetings in all the 3 towns and so forth and so on. So that has to happen no matter what. But I think Jen can attest to this also, and I'm going to follow up to you. Mm-hmm. You cannot raise your hand and ask a question at a meeting. We've been instructed not to by the superintendent, and all questions at the end of the meeting have to be asked to him. Now, this is something that happened to me at a meeting that I just didn't feel welcome any longer. And she goes every meeting, and I think she can attest to the same thing. It's the atmosphere. And that atmosphere then gets around, people talk, and okay, why are we bother going to go? We can't even ask a meeting. Excuse me, we can't even ask a question.
So,
you want to follow up?
Sure.
Well, I mean, I was specifically asked not to ask questions until after the meeting at the when the superintendent first started, and I abide by that, except for when I have something to say during public comment. But I guess my thought would be, because I think Glenn's right. The way that the new subcommittee structure is set up, it is public, but it's not taped. It's not broadcast. And you're technically not making any decisions. So from my perspective, my editors aren't sending me there to cover it. So in a sense, you know, maybe it's de facto, but I think Glenn's right in the sense that not a lot of people are finding out what's going on at those meetings where all the discussion, most of the discussion, mm-hmm. to be fair, most of the discussion is taking place. So in that sense, I think that's what he's picking up on. I don't want to speak for him, but that's what I think.
It is, because then you come to all those subcommittee
if you
meetings.
want me to answer, I'd be glad to.
Where all the decision making is happening, and then they come to the main meeting, and then they go vote yes, no. Like the budget meeting was not even a. Okay, I've said enough.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought this forward, and especially like Jen. I think that with Jen, she's looking for a lot of details and information, and maybe that can't always be pulled at that time. That can be addressed. As for, I've been at meetings and people have asked questions during the meeting. Andy asked some great questions about the school enrollment at the Page School one night. It was at the beginning of the meeting. We had a good discussion about it. I think it lasted about 15, 20 minutes anyways. But again, I mean, they are advertised. If you'd like to see the meetings taped, that's a resource of the school. I can see if that can be done. I'm not sure. The kids are the ones who put that on. So I can't speak for the superintendent's resources. That's his decision on how he utilizes his equipment in the school and his manpower. So unless we get a student, I'm not going to speak to that. But I really encourage people to attend those meetings. They're on Tuesday nights. You know, it's the opposite week of the business meeting. Please come, work with us. I mean, there was a great team that worked on the LEAP. On those innovation schools, they were made up of parents, they were made up of teachers, they were made up of the officials in the towns. So it was a wide variety of people who worked on those committees. So it is having your voice in what we're doing. It comes from the school improvement plan, the district-wide plan. All those things go into our decisions that we make. So it isn't us making the decisions, it's coming from you. And if you have to attend, if you want to have them taped, we'll see what we can do. Maybe Mr. Kemper there would volunteer his equipment and his people here, but we'll see what we can do for that. So I think that's an easily solved one. And Jen, if you have questions during the meeting that isn't a detailed thing with facts and figures, I think that that's something that can be addressed. I don't think these are big problems. If you bring them towards us, we can solve them. We can work together and come up with an answer.
Great, thank you.
Well,
I know I went long.
so I had coffee this afternoon with another dad who has a daughter who's a senior at Pentucket High School. And he was saying, you know, everywhere I go, all I hear is bad things about the school system. And my daughter has had the best education. And then I started talking about my 9th grader. I'm like, yeah, this has been the best year of his life between, you know, what he's doing in school, what he's doing on the track team. The reality is, in the community right now, there's a negative echo chamber about this school district. And I don't think the perception is aligned with reality. The issue is that there's nobody from the school committee or anywhere else for that matter standing up and saying, no, here's what's good about our school system. What you're thinking isn't right. Here's what my son's experiencing. Here's what my daughter's experiencing. And I'm glad you brought up Project LEAP, because I think that's exactly how we should be engaging the community. Inviting people in, letting them know way ahead of time when meetings are coming, inviting them to tours of the school. The problem is, outside of Project LEAP, that's not being done anywhere. So we're involved with selective engagement. And when you do that, you become like the neighbor that never talks to you except when they want to borrow your lawnmower. You know, you don't necessarily like that person. Maybe you'll let them borrow the lawnmower. We need the support of the community. We need people to keep their kids in the system. And that means we need to invite them in, even if it means uncomfortable conversations and longer meetings. And it means the school committee really has to step up its game in communicating. When I go to the school committee website, and again, 2 of the 11 responsibilities of the school committee are communications and advocacy. When I click on the tab on the school committee site that says communication, the last communication is dated 2009. When I click on goals, the last stated goals are 2011. When I click on archive meeting minutes, the last meeting minutes are 2011. If you're a parent who's working hard and can't get to a meeting, or if you're thinking of moving to this community and you want to know what's going on and you go to that site, what are you going to think? You're going to think there are no goals, there's no communications, and it's questionable if people are even meeting. So we got to change this, and we got to be proactive. We got to get out in the community, engage people, and start telling them about what's right with this school. That's the only way we're going to start reversing the trend. And by the way, it doesn't cost us a red cent. We just got to change how we work. That's it.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bowe.
Hi. Well, first a comment. I actually was on the cable committee that purchased all the equipment and was familiar with the school system when they did broadcast the school committee meetings. And we used to take the DVD and air it in West Newbury. And you know, I know that the students that were doing it got a good educational value out of that. So, you know, whoever is our school committee representative, I would just strongly urge, you know, that be re-engaged. You know, it's just positive for the community. I mean, here we are at a live cable, maybe the 12 people at home watching it. You know, it never hurts. I mean, the selectmen's meetings, it never hurts. So I would just encourage that. So I learned kind of three things tonight. First, thankfully, you know, a decade of budget crisis and financial problems with the school system is, you know, stabilized. However, apparently over the last few years, 2 things have happened that I've learned tonight. One is Whittier has funky admission criteria. that apparently is developed, well, discovered about a year and a half ago, and I don't know how long that has been going on. And at the same time, our attrition levels from middle to high school have gone up considerably.
Yeah,
And- so
Yeah,
those
I
are
wanna
the three
address that.
things. And, well, Andy has mentioned his support about, the Whittier thing, so I don't know if there's, any other comments. Is that an issue? Et cetera.
Yeah, I was hoping, I want to go first on this one because you say that people are leaving Pentucket in droves. You haven't said how many yet, though. And what I've seen is Greg LeBrecq told us last year that the number we thought was going to leave Pentucket based on averages, we had less than expected leave Pentucket at that 8th to 9th grade level. So we had an extra bit of revenue in our system. So people are not leaving the way they were in the past. We have these innovation schools now. Kids can get early high school credit in 8th grade. They can get early college credit. You want to know what's right with Pentucket. We have kids who can earn almost a year's worth of college credit as a senior at Pentucket. That's something that's pretty darn amazing. You have these innovation schools that are rivaling private school type education. You have low class sizes now. I mean, some of you parents in here, you had kids in classes that were 28 in the classroom in an elementary school. It's down now to 24 and below. We're looking at 23 and below at the elementary level. We can do better. We're going to have 50% of the classrooms at 17 and below. That's pretty darn amazing for a public school. It rivals many private schools. So this being a public school, you can't get a better education. I'm proud to be on the Pentucket School Committee. We've worked hard. We've listened to you. We've engaged parents. We've invited them in. The innovation schools, like I said, had parent involvement. It had faculty involvement. It had officials from town involvement in that. We sit and go to the regional finance committees to listen to what the town can afford. We work within our budgets. So Pentucket is a great place. I don't know where the numbers are that you're getting, Andy, saying people are leaving in droves. It's pretty flat.
Jill? Here.
Thank you.
Well, I get my numbers from the Massachusetts Department of Education. My 9th graders class in 8th grade had 262 people in it. This year they have 192 in 9th grade. That is an attrition rate of 26.7%. The last several years, if you go a year before that, it was 25%. Before that, it's 26.3%. Before that, it's 20.2%. Before that, it's 27.7%. What's interesting here is for the 2007-2008 school year, the rate was only 10.3%. The next year, it jumped to 25.4%. That's 2.5x increase overnight. How does that happen? A school doesn't deteriorate at that rate. The only thing that changes that quickly is perception. People don't believe in the system anymore. My experience has been different. I see what my kid is doing in class. He's getting a great education. I stand on my front deck. I look across the street. I see Pentucket kids who have gone to Middlebury, Cornell, and UVM. I look down the street. I see Brown. I see Brandeis. These are all PRSD kids. This is top notch. I think we have to stop talking about our world-class future and start talking about our world-class present. Nobody wants to buy a car based on someday the manufacturer will make world-class cars. A lot of good is going on right now, and the only way we're going to get it out there is to recognize problems like this. It's actually, I invite you all to come up. I got a stack of the data right here, and I got the trend line. You can look at it. You can go to the DOE site. They've actually been tracking attrition since 2009. Only in their case, I think what they do is they do like literally which kids from 8th grade went to 9th grade. This is just total class population. The state's attrition numbers are roughly 5% higher than mine. So the problem, I think, is even worse than what I'm saying here. And it's really distressing to me that we've got this iceberg in front of the Titanic, and nobody on the school committee seems to recognize it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, Ms. Solis.
Could both of the candidates speak just briefly about something that they think could improve within the curriculum of the district? I know that's not your specific role, but just to give us a sense of where you think the priorities are, what you think the strengths are, and where you think improvements are needed in that area. Thank you.
Where do we leave off?
Do you want to go, or I can go?
ahead.
I think recently I was speaking with some teachers in our district, and what they really feel that they need as educators is time for these units of instruction, these high powerful units of instruction. They have to develop these and then teach the children, all types of children, these powerful units of instruction. It's part of the new assessments. They don't have the time to develop these. I think if we can work something into our scheduling system to allow them to develop this curriculum, that would have a great impact on our success, to make us more successful. So that's one thing. I think another thing is, you know, Andy, we can always improve our communication. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's poor. I think we can work on it. I invite Andy and everybody else here, and ask 2 of your friends, come to a school committee meeting, stop us on the street. We can't answer you on the street probably, but we'll bring your question forward to a school committee meeting. People have done that to me before. They said, hey, you know, especially like about the track. What are you going to do about the track? This was the big thing. And, you know, you've seen that we have been able to improve the athletic complex without added impact to our tax base. I think that's an amazing thing. You have a track that you can have meets at now. You have a softball field. You have tennis courts. You have a practice field. I mean, all of these things were put in about a year and a half. Our kids are getting great services at our school. We can do better. Work with us. Let's improve.
So there are any number of things I'd like to see improved in the curriculum, but we're bound by budget considerations. You know, I remember when every school used to have French class. We don't anymore. So to me, what we have to think about is the ecosystem here, and how do we eventually solve the budget issue? And obviously, in a town like West Newbury, that becomes an issue around the overall real estate market, the tax base, and how do we just have more funds to work with so we can improve the school system. So, you know, to me, that's no coincidence that, you know, you look at these numbers and then the Globe writes a story in January saying West Newbury's dead last in real estate recoveries for all communities north of Boston. This is all interrelated. We live in an ecosystem. So I think we start by changing the conversation immediately to the great things that are happening today so the district gets its prestige back. So when people are selling houses, the line, and you have the Pawtucket Regional School District, becomes a major selling point, rather than something that I've been told by some people they don't even like to mention anymore. We just have to change this conversation. If we get more people moving here for the district, more people supporting the district, that will naturally lead to greater funds, and we can build up the curriculum again. But we're constrained by what we can spend.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? We have probably about 10 minutes. Yep, in the back.
This question is for Andy first. 6 years ago or so, we were in a financial crisis. And it's my belief, and probably a lot of us, that that's when the reputation, the perception went down. How do we improve that within the present budget,
Yep.
and at the same time keep the morale and the confidence of our families, our faculty, because I agree. I think we're putting out a great school system.
So I think you're absolutely right. And when you look at sort of the tipping point in these numbers, it does fall right around the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. To get people believing again, so one of the things is to start being proactive about engaging the community. Don't just post meeting agendas. Invite people in. Encourage their involvement. Tell people, I expect to see you there. The old boss adage, my door's always open, that's now putting the onus on your workers to come into your office, and they never do. And if you just say, well, we're meeting, come to our meeting, and we post them, look for it, that's not getting people involved. Things like the old budget meetings, when everyone was in the cafeteria, where the committee sat like this, so we're facing the crowd, rather than in a circle, so you're facing people's backs. It was just a completely different environment. So in terms of how you change the conversation, I don't think it really needs to cost us anything. Hamilton Wenham School Committee, for example, I was just looking at it. They put out a newsletter every month saying everything that's going on great in their district. Why can't we do that? I'll do it. I mean, it's no problem. Doesn't cost a red cent. We just got to change how we work. We have to be welcoming. We have to face people. We have to be willing to engage them and have difficult conversations and have meetings that might run a little longer. But that's okay. If you're winning over the community and restoring pride in their district, it's all worth it. So that's how you do it.
Was that Mr. Flaherty who asked that question? Yes. I thought it was. I had you as a teacher. Well, long time ago. Well, I'm glad you asked the question or brought up the point that that's when the numbers went flat, because I couldn't respond to you, Andy. We had that $1.5 million deficit that Pentucket couldn't come up with the answers to where the money was going that our taxpayers paid. And we had a financial oversight board that came and also took about $50,000 a year that we couldn't even touch, and they put it in a little fund. And it took a while to get the house in order. Things were kind of a miss in the business office. We went through 3 business managers in a year. We went through a couple superintendents in about a year and a half. There was no leadership there. You had to stabilize the business office. If you don't have the money and you know where it's going, you can't move forward. So that was number one to do. We've done that. Within about a year and a half, things were in order. We had good audits. Things were slowly getting cleaned up. Line items were where they needed to be. Okay. Right now, Amesbury is facing what we did about 6 years ago. They've gone through about 3 business managers in about a year and a half. Nobody knows where the money is. They have this national grid thing that was never paid. It's made the headlines for a while. They're facing what we did. Please don't have an oversight board and vote. I hope that town doesn't vote for one. So the money's in order. We're moving forward. Mr. Flaherty, you're right. Pentucket has always been a great school. It will continue to be a great school. We had 7 out of 8 innovation schools that passed the Department of Education grants this year. 7 out of 8 Pentucket got. That's extra funds to fund these. The innovation schools are budget neutral. We're not asking for more money. We are giving kids early college credit. The kind of courses that they're doing are relevant to the kind of education they want. They are shaping their own education to what they want to do later on. They don't have to. They can have a typical high school education. But if they want to go into public safety, they have courses that align with that. If they want to go into the Arts Academy, I know you have to tap me,
Yeah.
they can do that. So thank you, Mr. Flaherty.
All right. Any final one question, maybe, in the audience? If not, yeah? Mr. Kemper?
We do have a time constraint, but we have to.
Yes.
Since there are any questions, can both candidates maybe just do a 30-second
Yeah,
sum
that's-
up? Would be nice, and then we have to do set up for our selectors.
Right, absolutely. All right. Yeah, you started first last time.
Okay. So I've had the privilege of helping out the PEF. I relaunched their website recently, and part of that I wrote probably a dozen little success stories on what various teachers in the districts have done to procure grants and to bring new technology and programs into the classroom. And I kept seeing the same theme over and over again. A teacher or a group of teachers who are going through all this, and they only have one goal, and that's to teach our kids better. And I just kept thinking, wow, this school district is doing the hard stuff right. We got a great crew of teachers. And maybe I seem steamed tonight, but I am angry at the perception problem in the community. I don't think it's right. I think we have a great district. And I think, once again, we gotta have a school committee that takes leadership in correcting the perception and letting people know what's good. Thank you.
All right, Jill?
I just want to say I am very proud to serve on your school committee. I hope to continue. I wish that Andy had attended more of our meetings. I think I've seen him at 2 meetings in my 9 years that I've been on the committee. I think he would have gotten more input into shaping some of the decisions, some of the things he didn't like. We could maybe have addressed them. I hope to work with you in the future because you have some great ideas. Pentucket is great. We have our house in order. We're moving forward. And this is all through the help of the public and their input. We take it from what you and your children are telling us, from our surveys that we send out, and that helps shape where we're going. So thank you to the public for helping us have a great school in Pentucket.
Great. And again, on behalf of the West Newbury PTO, I thank the candidates and our guests. Good evening.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.